What would you do if you found yourself in a situation where the lines between right and wrong were blurred? Where the choices you made could change everything you thought you knew about love, family, and yourself? Hi, my name is Samuel Henson. I'm 18 years old, and this is my story. It's not an easy one to tell. It's messy, complicated, and filled with emotions I'm still trying to understand. But I think it's important to share because it's about more than just me. It's about how relationships can shape us, how boundaries can blur, and how one moment can change everything. Before I begin, I need to give you a warning. This story deals with sensitive topics, including infidelity and complex family dynamics. If these themes are difficult for you, please take care of yourself. This isn't meant to shock or upset anyone. It's just my truth, and I hope it can help someone out there who might be struggling with their own feelings or choices. This is a story about love, temptation, and the consequences of crossing lines you never thought you would. It's about my relationship with my mom, Kinsley Morrison, and how something that started as innocent closeness turned into something I can't fully explain. I've kept this secret for a long time. It's weighed on me every single day. But now, I'm ready to share it. Not to justify what happened, but to try to make sense of it. To understand how we got here and where we go from here. So, if you're ready, let's start from the beginning. This is my story. Growing up, my mom and I were always close. Maybe too close, looking back. She was my best friend, my confidant, my everything. But as I got older, things started to change. Feelings I didn't understand began to surface, and before I knew it, I was in a situation I never could have imagined. This story isn't just about what happened between us. It's about the emotions, the guilt, the confusion, and the aftermath. It's about how one moment can change your life forever. So, let's go back to where it all began. Before we go any further, I think it's important to introduce the people in my life who played a role in this story. These are the people who shaped my world, for better or worse. First, there's me. Samuel Henson. I'm just an 18-year-old guy trying to figure out who I am and where I fit in this world. Growing up, I always felt like I was different. Not in a bad way, just different. I didn't have a lot of friends, and I spent most of my time at home with my mom. She was my safe space, my comfort zone. But as I got older, I started to feel this emptiness inside me. Like something was missing. I didn't know what it was at the time, but now I think it was just the need to feel seen, to feel understood. Then there's my mom, Kinsley Morrison. She's in her late 30s, and she's been a single mom for as long as I can remember. She's always been there for me, no matter what. She's the kind of person who puts everyone else before herself. But I think that's also her biggest flaw. She's so focused on taking care of others that she forgets to take care of herself. She's been through a lot in her life, bad relationships, heartbreak, you name it. And I think all of that has shaped who she is today. She's strong, but she's also vulnerable. She's loving, but she's also lonely. Kinsley has always been open with me, maybe too open. We've never had secrets between us, or at least that's what I thought. She's the kind of mom who would walk around the house in her pajamas, not thinking twice about it. She'd hug me, kiss me on the cheek, and tell me she loved me every day. And I loved her for it. But as I got older, I started to notice things I hadn't before. Little things, like the way she'd laugh or the way she'd look at me. And that's when things started to change. Next, there's Maximus Vasquez. He's my mom's boyfriend, and honestly, I've never been a big fan of him. He's charming, sure, but there's something about him that feels off. He's the kind of guy who says all the right things, but doesn't always follow through. He's not a bad person, but he's not the best either. He's emotionally distant, and I think that's what hurts my mom the most. She wants someone who's there for her, someone who makes her feel loved. But Maximus? He's not that guy. Finally, there's Rowan Graves. He's my best friend, the one person I can talk to about anything. Well, almost anything. Rowan's the kind of guy who's always got your back, no matter what. He's funny, loyal, and just a little bit reckless. But he's also the only person who's ever really understood me. We've been through a lot together, and I trust him more than anyone else in the world. But even with Rowan, there are some things I've never been able to say out loud. Some things I've kept buried deep inside. These are the people who shaped my story. They're the ones who were there when everything changed. And they're the ones who had to live with the consequences of my choices. So, now that you know a little bit about us, let's go back to where it all began. To a time when things were simpler, when the lines between right and wrong were still clear. To a time when I was just a kid who loved his mom and didn't know how complicated life could be. Growing up, my mom and I were inseparable. We didn't just have a typical mother-son relationship, it was deeper than that. She was my best friend, my confidant, my everything. From the time I was little, we did everything together. We'd watch movies late into the night, share secrets, and laugh until our stomachs hurt. She was my safe space, the one person I could always count on. But looking back now, I realize our relationship wasn't exactly normal. We were close, maybe too close. It's hard to explain, but I'll try. For as long as I can remember, we shared a bed. It wasn't weird to me back then. It was just how things were. She'd tuck me in at night, and we'd talk until I fell asleep. Even as I got older, that didn't change. I'd crawl into her bed after a bad dream, and she'd hold me until I felt safe again. It was comforting, you know? Like nothing in the world could hurt me as long as she was there. We were also really affectionate with each other. She'd kiss me on the mouth, not in a weird way, just quick pecks like you'd see in old movies. It was her way of showing love, and I never thought twice about it. She'd hug me tight, ruffle my hair, and tell me how much she loved me. And I loved her too. More than anything. Kinsley was also really comfortable around me. She'd change clothes in front of me without a second thought. At the time, it didn't seem strange. It was just normal. She'd walk around the house in her pajamas, usually just a shirt and underwear, and it never bothered me. I didn't see her as anything other than my mom. She was just Kinsley, the woman who raised me, the person who made me feel loved. But as I got older, things started to shift. I didn't notice it at first. It was subtle, like the way she'd laugh a little louder or smile a little brighter. The way she'd brush her hair out of her face or tilt her head when she was talking to me. Little things that I hadn't paid attention to before suddenly started to stand out. I remember one day, I came home from school, and she was in the kitchen cooking dinner. She was wearing this loose tank top and a pair of shorts, and her hair was tied up in a messy bun. She looked different. Not like my mom, but like a woman. I didn't know how to process that feeling, so I pushed it aside. But it stayed with me, like a shadow I couldn't shake. Then there was the shower incident. I'll never forget that day. I was heading to the bathroom to grab something when I accidentally walked in on her stepping out of the shower. She was completely naked, and for a split second, I froze. I didn't mean to look, but I did. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I quickly apologized and left, but I couldn't get the image out of my head. It wasn't just that I'd seen her naked, it was the way it made me feel. Confused, guilty, and something else I couldn't quite name. I didn't want to feel that way about my mom, but I couldn't help it. After that, things started to change. I found myself noticing her more, the way she moved, the way she laughed, the way she looked at me. It was like a switch had been flipped, and I didn't know how to turn it off. I didn't tell anyone about what I was feeling. How could I? It wasn't something you could just bring up in conversation. Hey, Rowan, I think I might have feelings for my mom. What do you think? No. It was my secret, my burden to carry. But the more I tried to ignore it, the harder it became. I started avoiding her, spending more time in my room or out with friends. But no matter how far I ran, the feelings followed me. Looking back now, I realize that was the beginning of the end. The moment when everything started to unravel. But at the time, I didn't see it coming. I didn't know how much things were about to change. This is where it all began. This is where the lines started to blur. That moment, the one I mentioned earlier, it's burned into my memory. I can still see it so clearly, even though I've tried to forget. It was a regular day, nothing special. I'd just gotten home from school, and I needed to grab something from the bathroom. I didn't think twice about it. I just opened the door and walked in. And there she was. Kinsley was stepping out of the shower, completely unaware that I was there. She had a towel in her hand, but she hadn't wrapped it around herself yet. For a split second, time seemed to stop. I saw her, really saw her, in a way I never had before. I froze. My heart started racing, and my mind went blank. I didn't know what to do. I should have turned around and left immediately, but I didn't. I just stood there, staring, until she noticed me. "Samuel," she said, startled but not angry. She quickly covered herself with the towel and laughed it off. "You scared me. Next time, knock, okay?" I mumbled an apology and bolted out of the bathroom, my face burning with embarrassment. I didn't know what to say or how to act. All I knew was that something inside me had shifted, and I couldn't undo it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. The image was stuck in my head, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake it. I felt guilty, confused, and something else. Something I didn't want to admit. I started avoiding her after that. I'd make excuses to stay in my room or go out with friends. I didn't want to be around her because every time I felt this strange tension I couldn't explain. It was like a wall had gone up between us, and I didn't know how to break it down. But the more I tried to avoid her, the more I noticed her. Little things I hadn't paid attention to before suddenly seemed magnified. The way she'd laugh, the way she'd tilt her head when she was thinking, the way she'd brush her hair out of her face. It was like I was seeing her for the first time, and I didn't know how to handle it. I started to feel things I didn't understand. Things I didn't want to feel. I'd catch myself staring at her when she wasn't looking, and I'd feel this pang of guilt in my chest. I didn't want to feel that way about my mom, but I couldn't help it. It wasn't just her, either. It was the way she interacted with Maximus, her boyfriend. I'd hear them laughing together, and it would make my stomach twist. I didn't like the way he looked at her, or the way he touched her. It made me feel jealous. And that scared me more than anything. I didn't know what was happening to me. I felt like I was losing control, like I was being pulled into something I didn't want to be a part of. But at the same time, I couldn't stop myself. That moment in the bathroom changed everything. It was the catalyst, the spark that set everything in motion. And once it started, there was no going back. This is where it all began. This is where the lines started to blur, and I didn't know how to stop it. After that day in the bathroom, something inside me changed. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen. It was like a switch had been flipped, and I didn't know how to turn it off. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just a one-time thing, that it didn't mean anything. But the more I tried to push the thoughts away, the stronger they became. I started to notice her more, really notice her. The way she moved, the way she laughed, the way she looked at me. It was like I was seeing her in a whole new light, and I didn't know how to handle it. I'd catch myself staring at her when she wasn't looking. I'd watch her get dressed in the morning, pretending to be busy with something else so she wouldn't notice. I'd listen to her talk to Maximus, her boyfriend, and feel this strange pang of jealousy I couldn't explain. It wasn't just her, either. It was the way she interacted with Maximus. I'd hear them laughing together, and it would make my stomach twist. I didn't like the way he looked at her, or the way he touched her. It made me feel angry. And that scared me more than anything. I didn't know what was happening to me. I felt like I was losing control, like I was being pulled into something I didn't want to be a part of. But at the same time, I couldn't stop myself. One night, I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, but I couldn't. My mind kept wandering back to her. I tried to push the thoughts away, but they were too strong. Before I knew it, I was touching myself, thinking about her. I felt guilty afterward, so guilty. I didn't want to feel that way about my mom, but I couldn't help it. The more I tried to ignore it, the worse it got. It became a cycle. I'd feel guilty, promise myself I'd stop, but then the thoughts would come back, stronger than before. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't talk to anyone about it, not even Rowan. How could I explain something like that? So, I kept it to myself. I buried the feelings deep down, hoping they'd go away. But they didn't. They only grew stronger. I started to avoid her again, spending more time in my room or out with friends. But no matter how far I ran, the feelings followed me. It was like I was trapped in a cage, and the only way out was to give in to the temptation. But I didn't want to. I didn't want to cross that line. But then, one night, everything changed. It was a Friday night, and Kinsley and I were watching a movie together. We'd been doing that a lot lately, just the two of us, spending time together like we used to. It felt normal, like things were going back to the way they were before. But deep down, I knew they weren't. We were sitting on the couch, and she was leaning against me, her head resting on my shoulder. I could smell her shampoo, feel the warmth of her body next to mine. It was comforting, but at the same time it was overwhelming. I tried to focus on the movie, but I couldn't. My mind kept wandering, and before I knew it, I was thinking about her again. When the movie ended, she stood up and stretched. "I'm going to bed," she said, yawning. "You coming?" I nodded, even though I didn't want to. I didn't trust myself around her anymore, but I didn't know how to say no. We went to her room, and she changed into her pajamas, just a shirt and underwear, like always. She didn't think twice about it, but I did. I tried not to look, but I couldn't help it. She climbed into bed, and I followed, lying down next to her. She turned off the light, and we lay there in the dark, the silence stretching between us. I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, and my body was tense. I could feel her next to me, hear her breathing, smell her perfume. It was too much. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the darkness, or the silence, or the way she was lying so close to me. But before I knew it, I was reaching out, touching her. I started with her arm, gently running my fingers over her skin. She didn't move, so I kept going, my hand moving to her back, then her waist. My heart was pounding, and my hands were shaking. I knew I should stop, but I couldn't. I was too far gone. I moved closer, pressing my body against hers. I could feel her warmth, her softness, and it drove me crazy. I reached under her shirt, my hand trembling as I touched her skin. She stirred, and for a moment, I thought she was going to wake up. But she didn't. I kept going, my hand moving higher until I was touching her breast. She let out a soft moan, and I froze, waiting for her to push me away. But she didn't. Instead, she turned toward me, her eyes half open. "Samuel," she whispered, her voice groggy with sleep. I didn't know what to say. I was terrified, but at the same time, I couldn't stop. "Shoo," I whispered, my voice shaking. "It's okay, Mommy." She looked at me for a moment, her eyes searching mine. Then, to my surprise, she reached up and touched my face. "It's early," she murmured, her voice soft. "I have to get up for work soon." I nodded, my heart racing. "I'm sorry," I said, starting to pull away. But she stopped me, her hand on my arm. "No," she whispered. "It's okay. Keep going." That was all I needed to hear. I leaned in, kissing her softly at first, then harder. She kissed me back, her hands tangling in my hair. It was like a dam had broken, and all the feelings I'd been trying to suppress came rushing out. I couldn't stop myself. I didn't want to. That night, I crossed a line I could never uncross. What started as a moment of weakness turned into something neither of us could take back. And in that moment, everything changed. After that night, nothing was the same. I woke up the next morning, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was spinning, and my stomach was in knots. I couldn't believe what had happened. I couldn't believe what I'd done. Kinsley was already up, getting ready for work. She didn't say much to me, just gave me a quick smile and told me to have a good day. It was like nothing had happened. Like it was just another morning. But it wasn't. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way she'd looked at me, the way she'd touched me, the way she'd whispered, "Keep going." It was all I could think about. But at the same time, I felt this overwhelming sense of guilt. I knew what we'd done was wrong. I knew it was a line we should never have crossed. But I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. We didn't talk about it. Not that day, not the next day, not ever. It was like this unspoken agreement between us, we'd pretend it never happened. But pretending didn't make it go away. I started to avoid her again, spending more time in my room or out with friends. I didn't know how to act around her anymore. Every time I looked at her, I felt this mix of guilt and desire that I couldn't shake. She didn't seem to notice, or if she did, she didn't say anything. She just went about her day like nothing was wrong. But I could tell she was different too. She was quieter, more distant. Like she was trying to bury what had happened deep down where no one could see it. But it was there, lurking beneath the surface. I didn't know how to handle it. I felt like I was drowning, like I was trapped in this secret that was slowly eating me alive. I tried to talk to Rowan about it, but I couldn't bring myself to say the words. How could I explain something like that? How could I tell him what I'd done? So, I kept it to myself, letting the guilt and confusion build up inside me until I felt like I was going to explode. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't forget. That night changed everything. It changed me. And I didn't know how to fix it. As the days turned into weeks, the weight of our secret started to show. It wasn't just me who was struggling, Kinsley was too. I noticed it first in the way she acted around Maximus. They'd always had this easy, comfortable relationship, but now there was this tension between them. She'd pull away when he tried to touch her, or she'd make excuses to avoid spending time with him. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but then I started to see it more clearly. She was different around him, quieter, more distant. Like she was hiding something. And I knew what it was. Maximus noticed it too. He'd give her these looks, like he was trying to figure out what was wrong. But he didn't say anything. Not at first. Then one night, I overheard them arguing. I was in my room, trying to focus on homework, when I heard their voices drifting down the hall. They were in the living room, and even though I couldn't make out every word, I could tell they were fighting. "What's going on with you?" Maximus asked, his voice tight with frustration. "You've been so distant lately. Is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Kinsley said, but her voice was shaky. "I'm just tired, that's all." "Tired?" Maximus repeated, sounding skeptical. "This isn't just tired, Kinsley. You've been avoiding me for weeks. What aren't you telling me?" There was a long pause, and then Kinsley sighed. "I don't know, Maximus. Maybe we just need some space." "Space?" Maximus sounded hurt now. "What does that even mean? Do you not want to be with me anymore?" "I don't know," Kinsley said, her voice breaking. I need some time to figure things out." The argument went on for a while, but I stopped listening. My heart was pounding, and my hands were shaking. I knew this was my fault. I knew I'd caused this. But I didn't know how to fix it. Meanwhile, Rowan started to notice something was off with me too. We were hanging out at his place one afternoon, playing video games like we always did, when he suddenly paused the game and turned to me. "Dude, what's going on with you?" he asked, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" I said, trying to sound casual. I mean, you've been acting weird lately, Rowan said. You're always zoning out, like you're not really here. And you've been avoiding everyone. What's up? I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell him the truth, but I couldn't. How could I explain something like that? It's nothing, I said, forcing a smile. Just family stuff, you know? Rowan didn't look convinced, but he didn't push it. All right, man, he said, turning back to the game. But if you need to talk, I'm here. I nodded, but I didn't say anything. How could I? The truth was, I felt like I was falling apart. The guilt, the confusion, the fear, it was all too much. I didn't know how to handle it. And the worst part was, I knew it wasn't just affecting me. It was affecting everyone around me. Kinsley was pulling away from Maximus, and Maximus was growing more suspicious by the day. Rowan was starting to notice something was wrong with me, and I didn't know how much longer I could keep it together. The cracks were starting to show, and I didn't know how to stop them from spreading. The question was, how long could we keep our secret hidden? And what would happen when it finally came out? The truth has a way of coming out, no matter how hard you try to hide it. For Kinsley and me, the fallout was inevitable. It started with Maximus. He'd been growing more suspicious by the day, and I could tell he was reaching his breaking point. He'd been patient, but his patience was wearing thin. One night, I was in my room when I heard them arguing again. This time, it was louder, more intense. I couldn't ignore it. I'm not stupid, Kinsley, Maximus said, his voice sharp. Something's going on with you, and I deserve to know what it is. I told you, it's nothing, Kinsley replied, but her voice was shaky. Don't lie.